do you believe they might have based that, Graham?
Well, I'd like to pay tribute here to the work of John Major Jenkins. I know that he's been a guest on Coast to Coast before and indeed recently. And John's work on Mayan astronomy and the Mayan calendar tells us very, very exactly why that date, and also tells us that the Maya were extraordinarily accurate and precise observers of the heavens, and that they had a very clear knowledge and understanding of time and the way that the passage of time affects the positions of the stars in the heavens, and in particular the positions of those stars lying in the background against the rising point of the sun on the horizon on particular days of the year. And what happens on 21 December 2012, and in fact, really, as John Major Jenkins points out, we're looking more at a window here rather than a very specific and exact moment, a window of about 40 years. When were you to, but in the exact middle of which is 21 December 2012, like the crosshairs on a site. What happens is that if you stand on the morning of the winter solstice, which is the 21st of December, the point that the sun reaches its southernmost point in its annual journey, and you look at the place in the sky where the sun is going to rise in an hour's time, it's an hour before dawn, and you're looking at the point in the sky where the sun will rise, you'll see that the Milky Way is lying on the horizon in that position. And in fact, the sun will rise against the background of the exact center, the heart of the Milky Way. And the sun has been tracking towards that position for thousands and thousands of years and reaches it in our epoch. Now, I think what's going on here is that the Maya are not saying that in itself causes the disaster. I think they're saying that is the marker by which we can recognize the return of the disaster. It's like a clock in the heavens, and their astronomy was so accurate that they were able to predict this event thousands and thousands of years ago.
Well, given that date and a 40-year window, our butts are just about hanging out that window now.
Our butts are right hanging out of that window now, and I do think that we need to take seriously what the Maya had to say, but that it also involves responsibly studying exactly what the Maya did have to say. And that is a very complicated message, not an extremely simple message that the world will just come to an end on that date. It's a bit more complicated than that. It certainly seems to be signaling the end of an age of the world, the end of an epoch, the closure on a long period of time. In fact, closure specifically on the whole of the last 5,000 years. But what exactly is to happen then still remains open to some question and to some doubt. But one thing I know for sure is that we would be unwise to ignore this warning and this message from the ancient Maya, a civilization that observed the heavens so accurately and so closely, a civilization that had inherited thousands of years of knowledge from stargazing ancestors such as the Olmecs who preceded the Maya, is a civilization that we should take seriously. And when they tell us that something traumatic and tumultuous is going to happen on the date in our calendar that we call 21 December 2012, I think at the very least we should listen to them. We shouldn't just dismiss it and ignore it. We should take it into account. And one possibility that occurs to me, we were talking before the break about the notion that the fragments of a comet that had struck the Earth before might be due to return in exactly this period. And perhaps the Maya used fortuitous events in the sky, which they were able to predict extremely accurately, to act as a marker or a signal for the return of this event, so that by looking at the sky we could know that this danger was returning to us. But there's something more in the Maya calendar than that, and indeed in all ancient traditions that speak of the destruction of a former civilization. and speak of the possibility that this destructive episode could return. And what all these traditions agree on is that humanity itself is in some way implicated in its own fate. If you look, for example, at the story of Atlantis, which was passed down to us by the Greek philosopher Plato, and which indeed sets the destruction of Atlantis very much in this same period, around 12,000 years ago. If you look at that story, you will find that the background to Atlantis was that it had once been a noble, good, nurturing, kind and decent civilization, a civilization that was loved by the gods. But as time passed, it became arrogant, cruel, vicious, and mean-spirited. It became greedy. It became arrogant. It became so confident and so sure of itself that it angered the gods.
No, thank God we're not any of that today.
Well, exactly.
Are you actually suggesting that if we stop being, I think it's gross, repugnant, arrogant, cruel, wasteful, and excessive, then perhaps we avoid prophecy and we set aside this physical event somehow?
Well, I'm suggesting that the nature of life on Earth may be more mysterious than we realize it is, and that the intentions and actions of human beings may resonate outwards from us into the cosmos and may come back to us in ways that we might not like if our behavior is extremely negative. And I have to say, if there was ever a civilization that looks in mythological terms like a soon-to-be-lost civilization, then that civilization is ours. Because just like Atlantis, we have, if you like, lost the mandate of heaven. We have become arrogant. We have become entirely and intensely materialistic. We have created a system of thought that denies the existence of any mystery in the universe. We say that we know everything. Our scientists claim to be in command of all physical laws. If you look around the world today, the terrible man-made disasters that are unfolding, the shocking and horrific cutting down of the Amazon rainforest, which is proceeding at an unbelievable rate. To me, this is not just an ecological or an economic disaster. This is at heart a spiritual disaster. And we know in our personal lives that if we think negative thoughts, if we allow ourselves to be overwhelmed with darkness and feel dark towards others around us, then that darkness will return to us. It will rebound on us without any doubt whatsoever.
I believe that.
Yeah, exactly. And if we, on the other hand, think good of others and try to act good towards others, then sooner or later that goodness will return to us too. And I can't help feeling that on a cosmic level, this is also likely to be true, and that our civilization today is indeed bringing down disaster upon ourselves. And in a sense, we don't even need a long-period comet coming back after 12,500 years in order to do it, because our civilization on its own is capable of destroying all life on this planet and of wiping itself out in a frenzy of greed and stupidity and violence. So I must say, yes, I'm very worried when I look at this situation. Look at the story of Noah in the Bible. Again, it's the same thing, that God had become angry with mankind. If you go back to the Sumerian civilization, the Epic of Gilgamesh and the story of the flood that is told there, you read that the gods had become infuriated by the behavior and, in fact, by the noise that mankind was making, and decided to shut us up and silence us and send a flood to wipe the earth clean and save only a few who survived in a great ark. So I actually do think that our behavior is a big part of this story, and that one need not feel helpless in the face of these events. It is possible for human beings to change their behavior, to stop being to stop behaving in a wrong way. And I think in our hearts, all of us know that our society has gone grievously and badly wrong. And it isn't too late to turn things around. And this is the other side of the Mayan prophecy. that inherent in the Mayan prophecy is a notion not only of the end of a world age, but also of the beginning of another one, of a kind of rebirth of consciousness. And in a way, that sun sitting in the heart, the womb of the Milky Way, can also be taken as a symbol of